cafe was full that evening. Soft music played in the background, people talked, cups clicked, and everything felt normal. Nobody knew that in the next few minutes, silence would fall like a heavy stone, and one woman's quiet action would change how everyone in that cafe looked at strength. Ala walked in with calm steps. She was simple, peaceful, and always carried a small smile on her face. She sat at a corner table, opened her notebook, and started writing. She looked like someone who minded her own business, someone who avoided drama, someone who simply wanted to live quietly. But peace rarely lasts. When someone from your past refuses to leave you alone, Rayan entered the cafe with a loud laugh, surrounded by a group of his friends. He was the kind of person who enjoyed attention. Whenever he entered a room, he needed people to notice him. He spotted Ayla immediately. His smile faded. Something dark flickered in his eyes, something between jealousy and old anger. For a moment, he stood still, watching her. She did not look up. She was busy, lost in her world, unaware that trouble had just walked in. Rayan walked over to the counter, still staring at her. One of his friends whispered, "Isn't that Ayla? The one from college?" Rayan smirked. Yes, the same Ayla, the same past. His tone was sharp. His friend sensed something was off. "Leave it, man. It's been years." But Rayan was not a person who let things go. He loved holding old stories like weapons. He suddenly raised his voice just loud enough for the cafe to hear. "Some people think they can run from their past," he said, looking straight at Ayla. "But the truth always follows them." The cafe grew quieter. Ayla slowly lifted her eyes. She saw Rayan, and for a second her heart sank. Not from fear, not from shame, just tiredness. She had spent years trying to build a new life, but people like Rayan always dragged the past like a chain. Rayan stepped closer, still speaking loudly so others could hear. "Tell them, Allah. Tell them who you used to be." People started staring. Some whispered, some turned to see what was happening. Allah didn't react. She didn't argue. She didn't even stand. She simply looked at him, calm, steady, unbothered. Rayan grew bolder when he did not get a reaction. "She hides her past because she knows what she did," he said, pointing a finger at her like she was guilty of some great crime. But Ayla didn't flinch. Inside her, there was a storm. But on her face, there was silence. She had learned long ago that reacting gives power to the wrong people. She slowly closed her notebook, placed the pen on top, and took a deep breath. She stood up. Everyone watched her. Some expected a fight. Some expected her to break down. Some expected her to defend herself. But Ayla surprised them all. She looked at Rayan not with anger, not with fear, but with the kind of calm that only strong people carry. Then she pointed toward the exit. No words. No explanation. Just a simple, graceful gesture. And she walked out. The door closed softly behind her. The cafe remained silent for a moment. Even the music seemed to pause. People looked at Rayan not with support, but with confusion and disappointment. His attack had failed. Not because Ayla fought back, because she chose not to play his game. Outside the cafe, Ayla walked slowly, breathing deeply. Yes, her past had scars. Yes, she had been judged before. But she had learned one thing. You don't have to stay where people try to break you. Rayan had pointed at her past. But Ayla had pointed at the exit, because her peace mattered more than his noise. And this was only the beginning of her story. Ayla walked away from the cafe. But her steps were slow, almost thoughtful. She did not look angry. She did not look defeated. She simply looked tired. Tired of old shadows. Tired of being judged by stories that were not even true. As she walked, she remembered something she once read. Some people don't hate you. They hate the version of you that lives in their mind. And Rayan had built a whole story in his minda. Story he repeated again and again until he believed it himself. Ayla reached a quiet park nearby and sat on a bench. The cool air brushed her face. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the world calm down. But memories from her past did not calm so easily. They returned like slow waves, one after another. She had not always been so strong. There was a time when she cried easily, a time when words hurt her more than wounds. Back in her school days, Ala was shy, silent, and too easy to target. She was the kind of girl who sat at the back of the class, who helped teachers, who never talked loudly, who never argued. She believed in kindness. She believed the world was gentle, but the world is not gentle to soft hearts. When Ayla was in college, one small rumor changed everything. It started with jealousy, like most rumors do. A girl named Sana, who once called Ayla her friend, began whispering things about her. It began small. Ala thinks she's better than everyone, and grew bigger. Ala lies about her family. Finally turned poisonous. Ala did something shameful. The rumor spread like fire. Nobody asked her if it was true. Nobody tried to know her side. They just believed the loudest voice. And at that time, the loudest voice was Sana's. Rayan was in the same class. He was quiet at first, but when the rumor grew, he joined the noise. Not because he knew anything, but because he enjoyed attention, and the rumor gave him a chance to be noticed. Ala tried to explain herself in the beginning. She tried to defend her honesty, her reputation, her dignity, but the more she spoke, the more people twisted her words. Every sentence she said was turned into another joke. Every truth she told was turned into another lie, so she stopped speaking. Not out of guilt, but out of exhaustion. She learned something important. Even if your truth is pure, people with dirty minds will still twist it. She focused on her studies. She kept her head down. She avoided drama. She prayed that time would clear her name. But rumors have long legs. They run far, even when they are false. After college, Ala worked hard to build a new life. She got a job, met new people, and made real friends who liked her for who she truly was. Slowly, she healed. Slowly, she grew stronger. Slowly, she rebuilt her confidence. But Rayan, he never moved on. He held on to the old rumor as if it was some kind of weapon. In his mind, Ayla's success was unfair. He believed she didn't deserve the peace she had found. And today, in the cafe, he tried to drag her back to the past she had already walked away from. Ayla opened her eyes again in the park. She looked up at the sky. The clouds were moving slowly, like they understood her feelings. She whispered to herself that rumor was a lie. But my strength is real. She remembered the day she promised herself she would never explain her past to anyone again. Not because she was hiding anything, but because she didn't owe anyone her pain. Whoever wanted to believe lies would believe them anyway. She stood up from the bench and took a long breath. Rayan had pointed at her past in the cafe, but he didn't know that Ayla's past was not her weakness. It was the fire that built her strength. And now, for the first time in years, she felt ready to face the truth. Not to defend herself, but to finally let go of the last piece of pain she still carried tomorrow. Her story would move forward. But first, she had to close this old chapter forever. Ala woke up the next morning with a strange mix of calmness and heaviness. The memory of the cafe scene still floated in her mind, but it did not hurt the way Rayan hoped. Instead, it reminded her of how far she had come. But there was still one thing she could not ignore. Her history with Rayan was deeper than just a rumor. Their story had not always been filled with bitterness. There was a time long ago when Rayan and Ayla were simply two students sharing the same classroom, same lessons, and sometimes the same dreams. Before the rumor, before jealousy, before ego, things were different. Back then, Rayan was not the loud, attention-seeking person he had become. He was quiet, serious, and often kept to himself. Ayla noticed that he usually sat alone, reading or thinking. She did not know why. But she always felt there was a gentle side to him that he never showed openly. One day, during a college project, their teacher paired them together. Ala remembered how nervous she had been. She was shy, and Rayan looked strict. But to her surprise, he spoke softly. He listened. He even smiled sometimes. For the first time, they actually talked. During that project, they spent hours together in the library, in the campus garden. They discussed their goals, their fears, their dreams. Ayla learned that Rayan came from a difficult home. His father was harsh. His mother was tired. He grew up feeling invisible. School was the only place where he hoped someone might notice him. Ayla understood him. She knew what loneliness felt like. And for a short period, they shared a quiet, gentle bond. Rayan, for the first time, felt seen. But people change when their insecurities become bigger than their hearts. Everything shifted the moment. Ayla became more confident in college. She scored well in exams, teachers appreciated her, and classmates began asking her for help. Rayan, who once admired her strength, started feeling threatened by it. Instead of being happy for her, he felt overshadowed. Ayla never tried to compete with him. She always encouraged him. But Rayan's heart began twisting small things into negative thoughts. Why is she doing better than me? Why do people praise her and not me? Why does she get attention when I worked harder? These questions turned into frustration. That frustration turned into anger. And anger slowly shaped him into someone Ayla no longer recognized. When Santa's rumor began spreading, Rayan had two choices: defend the girl he once respected, or join the noise and gain the attention he always wanted. He chose the second. Ayla remembered the exact day. She realized Rayan was no longer the boy she once understood. She had overheard him laughing with others, repeating the rumor. For a moment, she thought she heard wrong. She hoped she heard wrong. But when he looked at her, there was no guilt in his eyes. Only pride that people were finally noticing him. That day, a quiet crack appeared between them. A crack that grew wider and wider until their paths separated completely. Now, years later, Ayla stood near her kitchen window, watching the morning sunrise. She wondered how two people who once understood each other ended up as strangers. Standing on opposite sides of truth, maybe life had taught them different lessons. Maybe Rayan had chosen the darker path because it felt easier. Maybe Ayla had chosen silence because it felt safer. But one thing was clear. Their story was not just about a rumor. It was about trust lost, respect broken, and a friendship that slowly turned into silent bitterness. As Ayla prepared her morning tea, she whispered to herself, "People change. And sometimes, that is part of the story." Little did she know, Rayan was also awake that morning. He sat in his room staring at the ceiling, replaying last night in his head. Something about Ella's calm exit haunted him. It gnawed at him. It made him feel smaller, weaker, exposed. For the first time in years, Rayan began asking himself, why did I do that? What am I trying to prove? Their paths had separated years ago. But after last night, they were about to cross again, and this time, in a way neither of them expected. Rayan spent the whole night thinking about what happened at the cafe. At first, he tried to convince himself that he had won, that he had exposed Ayla, that he had proved something. But the more he replayed the moment in his mind, the more hollow he felt. Ayla did not yell. Ayla did not cry. Ayla did not beg. She simply pointed at the exit and walked out with a calm dignity that made Rayan feel like the villain of his own story. By morning, his friends had already started sending messages. Why did you talk like that to her? That was too much, man. She didn't even react. That looked bad for you? Rayan ignored the messages, but they stung. Deep inside, he knew the truth. Ayla's silence had exposed him, not her. But instead of accepting it, he grew angrier. Anger was the only emotion he knew how to use to hide guilt. Meanwhile, Ayla tried to start her day normally. She opened her laptop, prepared for work, and forced herself to focus. But her mind kept drifting back to the cafe. Not because of Rayan's words, but because of the eyes that watched her. Eyes that judged. Eyes that whispered, even now, years later. The rumors still followed her like a shadow. She tried brushing it off, but a quiet sadness sat in her chest. She wondered how long she would have to pay for a mistake she never made. By afternoon, Ayla decided she needed fresh air. She walked to a small bookshop she often visited. Books always made her feel safe, like she could escape into another world for a while. But today, even the comfort of stories felt distant. She picked up a novel and flipped through the pages. But the words blurred. She closed the book and sighed. Just then, two college girls near the shelf began talking. "Did you see what happened in the cafe last night? I heard someone attacked a girl about her past. She just walked away like she didn't care." Alla froze. Her hands tightened around the book. She wanted to disappear. She quietly put the book back and walked out of the shop. This was exactly why she avoided confrontation. Every time she reacted, people talked. Every time she stayed calm, people still talked. There seemed to be no winning. As she walked down the street, she wondered if maybe she should have spoken up. Maybe she should have defended herself. Maybe silence wasn't strength after all. At the same time, Ryan was pacing in his living room. He felt restless, irritated, exposed. His own friends questioning him made him feel judged. And worse, Ayla's calmness made him feel small. He needed to prove at least to himself that he was right. And so, he made a decision. He would meet those same friends again and explain his side. He would tell them the rumor was true. He would make sure Ayla looked guilty. That evening, Rayan invited the same group to the same cafe. But this time, he wasn't laughing loudly or acting confident. He looked tense. One friend asked, "You okay?" Rayan forced a smile. Yeah. Just wanted to talk." But before he could begin, the cafe door opened again. Ayla walked in. She hadn't planned to come. But she needed to prove to herself that she wouldn't let fear control her life. She wanted to sit, drink coffee, and remind herself that the world didn't belong to her past. The moment Rayan saw her, his heart jumped. His anger flared, but so did something else, a strange fear that he couldn't explain. His friends turned to look at her too. Silence fell again the exact same way it did the previous night. Rayan stood up, ready to speak, ready to attack her again. But this time, something unexpected happened. Alla met his eyes. Not with fear, not with sadness, but with a quiet, powerful look that said, "I am not the girl you once hurt." That single look shook him more than her silence the night before. And in that moment, Rayan realized he was fighting a war that Alla had already won without speaking a single word. Alla walked into the cafe with a steady breath, her steps calm and confident. She didn't plan to confront anyone. She didn't plan to explain anything. She simply wanted to live without fear. But the moment she entered, she sensed the tension in the air. Rayan and his friends looked as if they had been waiting for something. Or maybe someone. Rayan stiffened when he saw her. His plan had been simple: talk before she arrived, twist the old rumor again and make himself look right. But now, with her standing there, everything felt difficult. Her presence made his lies feel heavier, harder to speak. Ayla did not sit near them, but she didn't hide either. She chose a table close enough to show that she wasn't afraid. She opened her notebook again, the same one she had closed the night before. Its blank page stared back at her, as if reminding her that today could be a new start. But Rayan couldn't handle her silence anymore. He marched toward her with slow, nervous steps. His friends watched him, unsure of what would happen. People in the cafe turned their heads, sensing a confrontation. "Why did you come here again?" Rayan asked, his voice low but sharp. Ayla looked up calmly. "Because I don't run from places." Her tone was soft, but it held a strength he wasn't expecting. Rayan frowned. "You think walking away yesterday made you look strong?" Alla didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her silence was louder than his anger. Rayan leaned closer, lowering his voice as if trying to corner her emotionally. "Why don't you tell them the truth? Why don't you admit what you did in college?" A few people nearby glanced at them cautiously. Alla felt their eyes, but she refused to shrink. "What truth, Rayan?" she asked gently. "The truth you created, or the truth that actually happened?" Her question hit him like a wave. His jaw tightened. "You know what I'm talking about?" Alla closed her notebook and finally stood up. She looked straight at him, not harshly, but with a tired kindness. "Let's talk then," she said. "Let's tell the real truth." Rayan blinked. He hadn't expected her to face him. He was used to her silence. He was used to her walking away. But today she wasn't walking away. Today, she was standing. And that scared him. Allah took a small breath and began speaking, not loudly, not dramatically, just honestly. Years ago in college, a rumor began. A rumor that I did something wrong. It wasn't true. It was a lie started by someone who was jealous. She looked at Rayan directly. And you knew it. Rayan's face tightened. Ayla continued. You knew it was a lie, Rayan. But you repeated it. Not because you believed it, but because you liked how people listened to you when you said my name. A quiet gasp came from a nearby table. Rayan swallowed hard. You were hurting, Ayla said gently. You felt invisible. You felt ignored. And instead of asking for help, you tried to destroy someone else. Rayan stepped back slightly. His friends stared at him with confusion and disappointment. But here is the real truth. Allah's voice softened. I forgave you years ago, not because you apologized, but because I wanted peace for myself. Rayan blinked rapidly. Forgiveness was the last thing he expected to hear. Allah continued. Yes, the rumor followed me. Yes, people judged me. But I learned to live with dignity even when others were cruel. I grew stronger. I built a life. I moved forward. She looked him in the eyes with a gentleness that broke him more than anger ever could. And you stayed stuck in the same past you tried to trap me in. Rayan's shoulders dropped. His friends looked away, embarrassed for him. Ayla picked up her bag. That is the truth, Rayan. Not the rumor. Not your story. This truth, or she paused, then added softly, I hope one day you grow too. Not for me. For yourself. Allah walked away this time, not pointing at the exit, not because she needed to, but because she had already outgrown that door. Rayan remained standing, speechless. For the first time in years, he saw the truth clearly. Allah wasn't running from her past. She had healed from it, but he had never healed from himself. Rayan remained frozen long after Ayla walked out of the cafe. His hands felt cold. His throat felt dry. For the first time in his life, he faced a truth he could not escape from. He was the one who never grew up. He was the one who carried the rumor. He was the one who kept his pain alive. Not Allah. Her words replayed in his mind again and again. You stayed stuck in the same past you tried to trap me in. I forgave you years ago. Grow for yourself. The cafe was silent around him. Even the people who had been watching earlier now looked away, giving him space, maybe out of pity, maybe out of discomfort. His friends didn't speak either. Noor, one of them, finally whispered, Man, she didn't even blame you. She just told the truth. Rayan didn't answer. He simply sat down, burying his face in his hands. Shame was a heavy weight. But for the first time, he wasn't running from it. Meanwhile, outside, Allah walked slowly down the street. The sky was turning orange as the sun began to set. The soft light touched her face gently, almost like the world itself was proud of her strength. She felt lighter not because she confronted Rayan, but because she had spoken her truth with peace, not anger. For years, she had carried the quiet burden of the rumor. She had cried in silence. She had worked harder than anyone knew. She had healed slowly. And today, she gave herself something she had been afraid to give. Closure. She stopped by the park bench where she had sat the day before. Sitting down, she let the evening breeze wash over her. She felt a strange calmness inside, like a door had finally closed. A small smile touched her lips. She whispered to herself, Sometimes healing is not loud. It's quiet. Across town, Rayan returned home. He sat in his room, staring at the wall, thinking about everything. He remembered the old days when he and Ayla worked on their college project. He remembered how kind she had been, how she listened, how she understood him. He remembered how he let jealousy and insecurity twist that kindness into resentment. For years, told himself that he was a victim, that life was unfair, that Ayla got everything he deserved. But tonight, he couldn't lie to himself anymore. Allah had moved forward. He was the one who stayed behind. He opened his phone and typed a message to her. I'm sorry. He stared at the message for a long time. His finger hovered over the send button. But then, slowly, he deleted it. Not because he didn't mean it, but because he finally understood that an apology is not a message, it's a change. And he wasn't ready to call it an apology till he became someone different. He put his phone down and stepped outside his house. The night was quiet. For the first time, he allowed himself to breathe fully. He made a promise not to Isla, but to himself that he would try to grow. He would try to become someone he wasn't ashamed of. Someone who didn't need to hurt others to feel seen. Someone who didn't live in the past. Days passed, then weeks. The story of the cafe incident faded away. People stopped talking. Life moved forward, as it always does. Ala continued building her new life with peace. She focused on her work, made new friends, and started writing again. Her notebook, which once held her pain, now held dreams and goals. One afternoon, she walked back into the same cafe, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. This time, the place felt different. Light, safe. She ordered a coffee and sat by the window. Nobody stared. Nobody whispered for the first time in years. She felt completely free. She opened her notebook and wrote, "He pointed at my past. I pointed at my future. And I walked with grace." Her story wasn't about the rumor anymore. It wasn't about Rayon. It wasn't about pain. It was about strength, growth, healing, a quiet victory. And from that day on, La lived not as someone running from her past, but as someone walking proudly into her future.